Hey everyone, welcome. Hope you guys are having a good Wednesday, good week so far. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk gaming, not Gundam, and some other good stuff that happened to us this week. Today is October 4th. This is episode 95 of Midnight Hatter Live. I actually looked it up and, did some calculations just to make sure that in the show's format, this is episode 95. I've done like over 200 live streams over the course of my YouTube career. But yeah, Midnight Hatter Live, episode 95. I'm, of course, your host, Steven, and joining me, as always, is the soon-to-be Zoidiac, Adam Blue. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Yeah, that's right. The thumbnail, Zoids. I don't know much of Zoids, except there seems to be this little crossover with people that are into Gundam, so I'm about to experience that. But here's one thing. I almost feel like I've seen something of Zoids before. I mean, I have now recently, but in my
Yeah.
past, I can remember. Was that like a wind-up robot animal?
Oh, you know what? I want to say that there was actually yeah, I don't know if it was like a Burger King or a McDonald's thing, but I
Yeah.
want to say that there was like a, gotcha style, like fast food toy for Zoids,
It was
which wouldn't
something.
surprise me
Something
because
that's
it's
not as
actually owned by
complex.
Tomy.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
Tomy.
Yeah. So
Oh.
Tomy, the toy company, owns the Zoids trademark, and that. I mean, this show was always destined to be a toy lineup, and
Sure.
even the older kits, like the older model kits. My younger brother and I used to have a couple of them, which we're gonna get into once we start talking about the topics in proper. But yeah, they used to be like fully articulated and animated, like they would have batteries in them, and like they would have like cool motorized functions, which was really awesome.
Maybe that's where the wind-up part comes. Yeah, there had to have been some lesser, like, more promotional form that I'm just familiar with, not realizing it's this bigger thing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty
and
cool.
so I see some of the familiar faces in chat. Robert, Goose, Diggs, Zionic Shadow, King Dylan. Yeah, and actually,
Oh, Clint's in there?
yeah, Diggs is the one says that old Zoids were wind up. So yeah, that's there you go.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Pretty cool.
we're gonna find out if we can kit bash them with Gunpla, but again, that's we're gonna get into that shortly, because honestly, I haven't been doing a lot of Gunpla building this week, and I blame Adam,
Of
because
course.
he has got me playing
Oh,
Double Dragon Gaiden every night, and I've just been grinding away in this game. It is so fantastic, and the way that they have really taken what is essentially an old school beat 'em up, like a it's like the TMNT game of yesteryear, and yeah, I mean it's fantastic.
that's cool. I'm so glad you like it. I've thought with all of our video game discussions, like, you would appreciate this game, even though this game isn't necessarily one that's, like, making a lot of noise or people are talking about it, but to me, it's like core gaming,
Yeah,
like, the way this game is mechanically is, like, 100% a game, like, in terms of there's no fluff, I would say. I mean, I do have some critiques, maybe we can get into that a little bit, but,
sure, yeah,
um, all in all, like, I love the setup of it and the gra and so, yeah, I bought you the copy because
yes,
that was what I was saying, like, this isn't a game where people are knowing about or like, "Oh, the new Double Dragon," and
right.
then people are gonna miss out on this, like, really tight gameplay.
Yeah, it really kind of flew under the radar, and I'm so glad and so grateful that you sent me a copy, because A, you know how I am about physical media and
Yeah.
having a copy of the game. But B, it really is like a love letter to these old games, and it's got so many unique features to it that I would love to see these in modern games. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, the difficulty settings, there's no like easy, medium, hard in Double Dragon Gaiden. It's like you fine tune the game stats to fit your individual play style, and the rewards that you get are, you know, um, kind of adjusted
Yeah.
to reflect the difficulty that you're playing at, which I think is awesome. I think more games should do that. And then the other thing that I noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this is kind of like a minor, and I don't even know that I would pay attention to it if I had not seen a video on the emulators for Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask recently online. So one of the things about, emulation and upscaling old games is sometimes you can optimize a game so much that it doesn't perform the way it was supposed to. So let me give you an example of that from Majora's Mask. I don't know if you stop me if you've heard this, Adam.
Okay.
The ending cutscene where, spoiler alert, the giants come in and they stop the moon from falling and all that good stuff. So the original N64 didn't have the computing power to run that animation smoothly. So there was a bunch of lag going on. Like the game almost like starts stuttering, right?
Yeah.
And so what they did was they, instead of optimizing the animation, they just slowed down the audio track to account for the lag so that it lines up correctly. So in
Wow.
modern emulations of the game, what you see is because they don't have the visual lag, the audio gets off sync because the
Wow.
original version had that lag and the new version, it's not like they compressed the audio down to fit the new sped up version. Now the emulation that you can get like on the Nintendo Switch, they actually manually put that lag into the game so that
Oh,
so I
it
mean it's just
matches
those
up.
that kind of attention to detail.
Wow.
And so as I'm playing Double Dragon Gaiden, I notice that sometimes you'll see those sort of like visual, like a little bit of lag introduced, especially when there's multiple sprites on screen and, you get some clipping and stuff that is really authentic to that era of gaming.
Uh, yeah, I don't think I've noticed that
Yeah,
or haven't paid attention.
it's
Yeah.
such a subtle thing, and I think what I appreciate about it is the fact that they had to intentionally put that type of stuff in there.
So I wonder if then to me, I'm just seeing it as regular old school game stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that that's one of the reasons that you and I appreciate it so much is those are the games that we grew up playing.
Yeah. No,
Um,
exactly. And I think what's interesting with this is what they did for modernization is the sort of progression system, if you will, because it's almost like a roguelike.
it
But
is.
what what it does is it has this like currency you get, and based on how you do your specials, you can maximize the currency you get, use the currency to buy tokens to unlock characters, which are cool. But then music, artwork, and stuff isn't gameplay
Yeah,
centric. So I feel like there's almost this disconnect between like the progression that works towards gameplay, but then a lot of the progression doesn't work towards any sort of gameplay mechanics. It's almost
yeah,
like why, other than the fact that it's fun, which
right.
is a good reason. One thing I noticed though is on the character unlock screen, there's 3 empty spaces or so at the bottom,
Yeah,
and on the Steam support page, the developer was asking, "What would you guys like to see in future updates?" Let me start characters, like
nice.
so. And I think they could add levels and then make it where that secret mission 5 is then permanently unlocked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that would be my only gripe with the game is that, like you said, the content kind of cuts off after a certain point. I mean, so in order to experience, and it's another thing that you brought up is the fact that the replayability. It's a fun game, but
Yeah,
then you can also, depending on the path that you choose, you've got 4 zones, and each zone has 4 or 3 levels in it. But if you play that zone first, you only get to play the first level. And then if you
right.
play the second zone or the second zone you play, you only get to play 2 levels. So how many runs would you have to do? I can't really do this math in my head because it's like
It,
4
I
to the power of 3.
Yeah, technically, yeah, I know. To be honest, yeah, that would be a lot of math there because each if you want to experience each zone to the fullest, you would have to replay one at least 4 times
Yeah,
to have it where the fourth mission is the last. But then to have the third to last mission or the
exactly.
next to last mission, I mean, yeah, you would
So it's like at
rotate that
least
as well.
16 runs,
Yeah,
something like
to
that.
actually and then also, once you beat the 4th mission, you're prompted with an option that either initiates the 5th mission or not, which I kinda like that idea too.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, when I was playing live and you had joined, in the chat when I played live, I think over the weekend, and
Yeah.
I actually did. It took an hour and a half, but I ran through the entire game, even that 5th, mission, which I didn't die until that or I didn't have to use my currency to continue until
Yeah.
the end. What I did there was I maximized the difficulty sliders for money by
Yeah.
making it where, like, upgrades cost the most because I rarely do upgrades. And then,
Right.
but I made it where enemy aggression and health are lower because when you die, it costs a lot to come back and it increases every time you continue. And
Exactly.
so it's like there's this balance of, well, I have to be careful and not die because the money I spent, I did a run on the hardest where by the end I was trying to continue
And you're
and
just out of money.
I had money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang, I spent all that. Like, that's a real game where it's like if you were trying to make money, you could waste all that time. And then you're like, I don't get anything from this.
I know. And
Like,
and and you know what? The couch co-op, I love couch
oh,
co-op, and so my
yeah.
wife and I played together, and that cost associated with recovering after a death, that is compounded by having an extra player, so,
It is. I
uh
know. Yeah, because 'cause I've been playing I would play with my son on Xbox, and yeah, that's but what's cool is, though, I guess even in the couch co-op, because 'cause you're playing with someone, is, like, kinda figuring out, like, the best way and be like, "Oh,
oh, yeah.
we should," like, me and my son were playing, and we're like, "Wow, we should be using our specials all the time, actually."
Yeah,
We wanna maximize how we, refill that bar to constantly do
exactly.
special moves. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You know, we've talked about this before, kind of like how game developers design a game in order to not have you like hoarding your
Yes.
resources, right?
Yeah.
Like so, like in for instance, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, you don't want to use your most valuable weapons because if you break them, you're not going to get them again unless you go and fight another Lionel or whatever. In Double Dragon, you are encouraged to burn your special meter because you're only going to refill it faster
Yep.
if you do it, and you get more health because you get health drops whenever you do like
Yeah.
a multi-hit KO. You get
Mhm.
more money for doing it, so it's like Doom, you know, how they had that
Yeah.
mechanic where you would recover health when you do melee kills and such.
That, yeah, the glory kills. I think they were called glory kills or gory kills, something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
But that's a great point. This game does the thing I think we discuss where it incentivizes you to play
Yeah.
and to use your things.
Yeah, be
Because I remember,
aggressive and
yeah, when I
yeah,
was first playing Double Dragon and I see my special, I'm like, okay, I'm going to save my special.
right,
I'm
I
going to
gotta save
save
it
it.
for the boss fight.
But no, I'll do it to any, if there's at least two enemies together, maybe even one. I'll just be like, I'll do it. I'll get those blue diamonds again, recharge. And so when I was doing that live playthrough, I wasn't really doing upgrades except for the ones that maximize your special meter.
Yeah.
That way, I'm always in special mode where I can constantly, you know.
And I think,
Yeah.
the one that I always get for Billy when I'm playing as Billy is the one where your special meter refills after you hit a combo KO. So that
Oh,
so
that's
that if you
excellent.
have a group of 3 or 4 guys stacked up and you
Yeah.
hit them with the special, then you immediately refill your special,
Yeah.
which
That's a good one.
perfect.
Yeah.
But,
It's it's such a good game.
yeah.
Like, and it's really among all the games that came out this year, a brand new Zelda came out. Starfield
Yeah.
came out. Cyberpunk updates. I still feel like Double Dragon is the game that got my attention, got me excited. And it's a game that does the thing that I think the perfect game does, where the music is just as good, and even the narrative, even though there's slightly one. I love like Triangle, how
Yeah.
it's in a garbage field or whatever, but like it's called Triangle. They have Egyptian themed stuff. They have this symbol of like hands doing this, and it has an eye in the middle. Like
Yeah.
it's like they intentionally build like narrative within it without having to give you story. You know?
Which is so cool. I love
Yeah,
when the gameplay is the story, and,
yeah.
yeah, it's a fantastic game. If you guys haven't picked it up yet, definitely go get it. It is in fact so good that I was distracted while I was playing, and, this happened, I think was it Sunday night maybe? It was either Sunday night or Monday night, but, someone actually tried to break into my house.
Oh my
So
god.
that was, that I mean, that was just nuts, like, you know, I heard, like, the door kind of rattling and, you know, there was some rustling going on outside. They started banging on the side door where, like, where my kitchen is, Wife's terrified. I'm like, oh my god, I hope that the baby doesn't wake up because she's been asleep. And we went outside and like it turned out that they had left or whatever. And we have a security system. We have weapons in the house.
Okay.
So we were fine. It's just surprising to me that like the dog didn't do anything. So like some guard dog she is.
That's funny. But wait, hold on. Did you look at the security camera and actually see someone coming up
Oh,
to your house and looking around?
no, we don't have like a doorbell cam or anything like that, but we just have like the doors and window sensors, that sort of stuff,
Oh,
motion
okay.
sensors and stuff like that. So, but that didn't go off either, so that was good, I
Dude,
guess.
that's pretty creepy. And it's almost like, God, this is my game time. Come
I
on,
know.
baby's asleep. If you want to rob me, let's set up something.
Yeah, like get me on the way to work or something. But no, I'm glad it turned out to be a false alarm.
Yeah.
We actually live in a pretty decent area, so I was surprised that that was going on.
Well, yeah, and it could have been maybe a kid that was just being irresponsible, or
Exactly,
maybe someone that was drunk and confused.
exactly. So,
So,
yeah,
ah,
but so
glad
all
to
is
hear it.
well, in the House of Hatter. But yeah, I mean that was a very startling thing that happened this week. So I don't know.
Jim Kell X dog needs firmware update.
Yeah, she definitely does.
You know what's crazy about dogs? Like we have a couple and they're annoying. But anyway, the little one will start running to the garage door inside here as my wife is still driving down like the main street, which is so odd because I get like a notification and we have that 360 app so we can
Oh,
see where
cool.
everyone is. And sometimes I'll pay attention to when my wife is coming because like she'll have stuff I help load out of the car. But like sometimes the dog will just go to the door and I'm like, really?
Oh yeah,
And then I'll hear the garage door and I'm like, wow.
they
But
know.
then sometimes people will come to the door and nothing will happen.
Oh yeah. I mean, at our old house, it was like that. Cooper would bark at anything. He'd bark
Oh,
at the mailman, bark whenever one of us came home. But then the one time, we were sitting just watching Netflix, and this police car comes screeching to a halt right out front of our house and puts a spotlight on the front door. Cooper's chilling on the couch, not doing anything. And then we look out in the backyard. We're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Like, there's cops surrounding our house. I'm like, "Oh, great, I'm getting swatted."
oh,
Turns out that there was a guy that was getting arrested, and he had jumped the fence into our
oh,
backyard. And so I opened the back window just in time to watch him get just tackled into our bird feeder. And I
wow.
was like, "Where's the dog on this one?" And then Cooper started barking when the cops came to the door and said like, "Hey, do you know this guy?"
Wow. That's funny. That's funny. I wonder if maybe the police were giving off that sort of protector vibes. And so those electrical discharges or vibrations then calmed Cooper. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe either that or he was just zoinked.
Yeah, there's that too. Probably playing Double Dragon.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my advice to you. Play Double Dragon, but make sure your doors are locked. Make sure that if you have a security system, have it. If you have firearms, make sure they're loaded out.
I was just seeing Rogue's comment between last or this weekend potentially getting robbed and then that. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in your neighborhood.
Jeez. Yeah.
Exciting times.
Yeah, we never a dull moment around here. So, but
At least
I,
you're
I
safe
figured I'd
though.
share that because it was a funny story. I'm
No,
like
that
sitting
is.
there and we're grinding away. I'm like, man, at least this game has a pause. Can you imagine if I was playing
Oh,
GBO2 and someone tried to break in while I'm like,
there
dude,
was
just give
yeah.
me. I've got 30 seconds left in the match. I'm almost about to detonate their base. Just
That's funny. There was something I was playing recently that didn't have a pause, and I was like, "But this game isn't online or anything. Why doesn't it have a pause? Why? Yeah, why isn't there a pause?" Because my wife needed help with something. And I'm like,
yeah.
"No." I think it was Lies of P. So the
Oh
Souls like,
yeah,
but it doesn't do the thing where people
the
lay down
networking.
messages. So I had no reason other than just to be hard arbitrarily.
I guess so. It's immersive, Adam. It's,
Yeah, that's true. Real time. Yeah.
but yeah. So again, thank you so much for sending me that. And
No.
speaking of
Yeah.
viewer mail, so last week on Gundam Explained, you showed off something that mutual supporter Goose sent
Oh
you.
yeah.
Well, Goose sent me something as well. It was a little too large for me to show on stream. last week, and I guess it's, I didn't want to interrupt our interview with Diggler because
Oh yeah. Right.
this is going to be the remainder of our show is talking about this, but the Kotobukiya Breaker repackaged version, 172 scale ZOIDS model kit.
Wow. Don't even know what I'm looking at.
This thing is a monster. So incredibly generous gift from you, Goose. I can't wait to get this thing built. We're not going to build it on stream today because you guys know how slow I am, and this thing is like I said. For comparison's sake, I was like, let's grab like the largest model kit box that
Oh,
we can kind of get familiar with. Here's our high grade Kshatriya box, and here is our Geno Breaker.
okay. I see.
Oh yeah, and the depth of it too is insane. We're talking.
Well, yeah. Do you want to show? Oh, yeah. Okay. Because I wanted to see some of the. Can you show the other side too? I wanted to see some of that,
Oh
like,
yeah, some of the
because I don't know.
accoutrement.
Okay. Very cool. It gives me some Shamblo vibes. That's the closest
Yeah, yeah,
thing that I can.
Shamblo, or the Red Dragon Thunderzord from Power Rangers. For those of you
Oh,
guys
there you
that are
go.
familiar with it, so it's a
Yeah.
Tyrannosaurus type Zoid, which we're going to get into some of the stories from Zoids so that you guys can understand because this particular kit, and I don't know that Goose knew this when he picked it up for me, but I have a deep relationship with this particular kit, this particular Zoid.
Oh.
For one thing, Zoids, I think it suffered from the same sort of treatment that Full Metal Alchemist got because it is a very adult themed anime. It deals with a lot of violence. In fact, when the Japanese version was released in the United States, they changed a bunch of names. They censored out a bunch of like the nudity and violence and blood that was going on in it.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think it has that kind of kiddie anime vibe the way that Full Metal Alchemist does, and so it got kind of written off as like that's a kids anime.
Hmm.
Um, Now that said, there are two sort of I guess timelines if you want to say it that way. So
Same universe,
yeah,
just
same
different timeline.
universe. But there are two series that came out. One is the Chaotic Century, which, in Gundam terms would, I guess, be more comparable to like Universal Century. That's the one
Okay.
that I preferred watching and the one that I'm more familiar with. And then there was the New Century, which takes place much, much later into the future and has more of like a G Gundam vibe because you have like licensed Zoid battles. Um
Oh, okay. So it's more integrated into like the universe is like a way of life.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. And then similar to G Gundam, it does that thing where it kind of it starts off as like here's our registered Gundam battles, Zoid battles, and then by the end of it, it's like demons trying to take over the world, and you have to
Okay.
unite and then take them out. So
So it's saying the original run of Chaotic Century was 99 to 2000.
yeah,
So that's true. Okay, so it's nothing earlier. For some reason, I thought Zoids was earlier than that.
no, yeah, I think that given the animation style because they use CG, and I
Oh,
imagine that a lot of the techniques that were pioneered by Zoids were then used for Gundam Unicorn.
oh, interesting.
Because you're talking about a lot of the sort of same mechanical designs that are being animated in 3D, like combining the 2D animation for the
Yeah.
characters with 3D animation of the mecha.
Oh, that's interesting. So not like Seed, where it's still animation, but like they just did it on a computer. It's
Yeah,
more of it. Maybe it's animation done on a computer, but it also has 3D.
exactly.
Okay,
So,
interesting.
but yeah, let me hop into the screen share here, and I will show off some of the stuff. One of the things that I will also do is, we'll be comparing the Kotobukiya style instruction manual with something comparable from Bandai, because I do want to highlight just, especially given the conversation that we had with Diggler last week, Kotobukiya's instruction manuals are absolutely on fire compared to Bandai. Bandai should take note.
Oh, okay.
But
But
that
does it show the actual, like, every bit of it? Because sometimes I'll when it shows, like, how to put things together, but it won't necessarily show it complete,
Oh yeah. Well,
you
and
know?
we're talking like detailed mechanical designs and things like
Oh,
that,
that looks sweet.
lore notes and all that good stuff. So there's some good stuff in here that I'm gonna share with you guys. But first, I want to hop into the screen share view to just give you some background about, the Zoids universe and what we're looking at here.
Okay.
So this particular Zoid, the Geno Breaker, was originally piloted by this man on screen, character by the name of Raven, supremely edgy. Certainly my favorite character from the series. He plays a role similar to like a Vegeta type character where he is an antagonist, but he's not the main antagonist. And by the
Ah,
end of the series, he and the um, he and the protagonist Van Flyheit here become sort of mutual respect for one another and kind of allies
isn't that
after
sort
the
of what
fact.
happens in Double O? Is it Double O I'm thinking of? Where there's that main bad guy that the main guy hates, and near the end they're kind of working together.
Oh yeah, was it Ribbons or am I thinking of?
Um, what is the guy's name? I don't want to distract from this, but I like that sort of storytelling because I think that gives depth to the characters as you're going through. It's not like obvious.
Yeah, yeah, and what's fascinating about the character of Raven in Chaotic Century is that he is not affiliated with either of the major factions. So you've got like the Helic Republic, and you've got the Gylos Empire. Oh, Jam Kalak says Mr. Bushido from
Hmm,
Double O.
okay.
Then you've got the Gylos Empire. These are the factions that are kind of at war on the planet Z, and and Raven is not associated with either of the major factions. He simply doesn't like Zoids, and he and his partner, or organoid, if you will, uh, are going around just killing Zoids because they don't like.
Okay, and they're not on Earth.
No, no, the story takes place on the planet ZI, and there's like an ancient race of Zoidians, which are like humanoid type people that are mostly died out, and then you have humans that kind of colonized and um, created their own governments and factions on that planet. So, and this will actually be kind of amusing. So the main antagonist of the Chaotic Century is a man by the name of Gunther Prosen, which doesn't look like a Gundam villain at all. This
No.
is like, I mean, come on, he looks like Annabelle Gatto. He even looks like he's
Yeah.
wearing a Xeon pilot suit. But he is attempting to revive an ancient Zoidian government known as the Xenobos Empire, and so he becomes like the main antagonist. The Gylos Empire and Helic Republic unite to fight against him. Raven also participates in that fight. Now, when you first encounter Raven, he uses like a saber tooth tiger style Zoid, the Saber Fang, I want to say, and then he is gifted the Genosaur, which is like the first version of this Tyrannosaurus Zoid, and he and his organoid by the name of Shadow. This is kind of an interesting twist that Zoids has on their mecha. Is obviously the Zoids are alive, and then they also have pilots. So like the you almost like have to tame your Zoid. And one of the things that they have are these like organoids, which are kind of like 6 foot tall miniature Zoids that can fuse with the core of a larger Zoid.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
It so it's almost like, trying to relate this to cool sci-fi stories. It's like Zoids are sort of like an ancient, like, AI beast or something, and so they're being tamed by these modern
yeah,
people on
yeah. I'd
okay.
say that that's a fair representation. And I see King Dylan mentions that the animation it is reminiscent of Transformers Armada, which is very fitting because it's like in Transformers Armada, you've got the uh you've got the like mini cons or whatever that can fuse with the Transformers and increase their power. Well,
Mhm.
what these organoids can do is they can actually evolve a Zoid Pokemon style. And
Oh,
so the
cool.
Geno Breaker is the evolved form of the Genosaur.
Interesting. So, and again, I'm, like, trying to sci-fi it all up, but it's like advanced AI, like synthetic, almost like androids. I
Yeah,
guess because they do have this like kind of growth or evolution, and they kind of have a mind of their own.
yeah. It's a little bit more, yeah, like fantasy compared to like a hard sci-fi. Like obviously in Gundam, everything is you don't have Gundams that are
Right.
alive that have their own personalities or whatever. And then even like you said, these are machines that can change over time, that evolve, that can like grow new appendages and things like that.
Oh
And
wow.
so there is that kind of science fantasy
Like
element
it's
of it.
self-replicating, like getting into like bioorganics, like self-replicating. Like I feel like you could ground it in sci-fi.
I think so
Um,
too.
yeah.
And in particular in the second half, or like second half of Chaotic Century, which I think Robert brought up, Guardian Force. In Guardian Force there is what I think is probably the coolest weapon design I've ever seen. There is an Ultrasaurus that is armed with what they call a gravity cannon. There's nothing particularly exciting about this cannon except for the fact that it's got a really long barrel, and the shells that they fire are made of this super dense material that's like really hard to really, work with, and it produces its own gravitational field. And so basically when this shell hits something, it generates like a 4-kilometer black hole.
Oh wow. That is cool.
So yeah, I mean that kind of stuff is cool to me, where you have like, there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief that you have to have in order
Right.
to suggest that, like, oh well, we can create miniature black holes, but like science, and
But
it kind of sounds grounded.
yeah,
It's like pseudoscience.
exactly. Like there is that talk of that, the theories. Yeah, and it's put on display here.
Yeah.
That so real quick, and you might have more that you're going to be going on with this, but
No, no.
you were saying earlier that when it was released in the US, they had to cut stuff, but was it dubbed in English?
Yeah. Yes, it was
Is
dubbed in English.
is there an English dub that's uncut?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So if I really want to watch it for truly the themes that it's going for, I probably just need to watch a Japanese version that might be subbed.
Maybe. Yeah, I would say
Okay.
I've not watched the subbed version, if there is one. But yeah, there's I mean entire scenes that have been cut and things that have been renamed. For instance,
Hmm.
later on in the New Century anime, the Geno Breaker then evolves a second time to become the Berserk Fury, which is what we see on screen here. Which this is the model kit that I had when I was a kid. Is I
Oh.
had the Berserk Fury. My little brother had a Shield Liger, which is like a lion type Zoid, but they had like motors in them, and so like those little blades on the Berserk Fury's back like folded up and would spin, and it would like walk while it was.
Oh, that's neat.
So we had like Beyblade style battles where we would wind up our Zoids and have them
Oh.
try to knock each other over. He always won because the lion has like a shorter center of gravity compared to the
Oh.
Berserk Fury. But this is a prime example of like the censorship that you saw, because in Japan this Zoid is called the Berserk Führer, which for
Oh, okay, I see.
for
I see.
references to
Yeah.
certain
Well, is it
1940s.
supposed to be an antagonist
Exactly.
one?
So
Okay.
supposed to
So
be
it's
an
like they're
antagonist.
directly referencing Hitler, and I guess the US didn't want any of that.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me a lot of G Gundam again, where you had the
Oh,
God
yeah.
Gundam that was
Yeah.
renamed Shining Gundam because, they didn't want to offend anybody. And you see that a lot in Zoids because like even as Robert mentioned, you know, the organoids that each kind of pilot has to help them pilot their Zoids. Um Raven had Shadow, which was that black dragon,
Yeah.
and Van Flyheit had a similar looking dragon organoid by the name of Zeke, but in the Japanese version it was Zeeg, like Zeke Zeon, and so they renamed it
Oh.
Zeke to have less.
Oh, that's funny. Huh. That's interesting stuff. I love this little, crash course. You've
Yeah,
got
and
me
I'm
hyped
probably
to
doing a
watch it.
terrible job
No,
of
I'm
explaining
I'm
this
hyped
stuff.
to watch it, and that the other question would then be, are there video games that are awesome?
That is That is a fantastic question, which I actually stumbled on a video game while I was doing research for, just
Huh.
talking about some of this stuff today. So I might have to dig that old video game up and
Cool.
play it.
Cool.
But yeah. So all that is to say, like I said, when I was a kid, I loved the Genobreaker. I loved its pilot Raven, and I even had the evolved form of the Genobreaker, the Berserk Fury. So the fact that now I have a Genobreaker as an adult, pretty cool, and I'm very
Yeah,
excited about it.
that is cool. And so that's neat then. I guess Goose knows Zoids. And since you know Zoids, that's kind of a thing you guys could talk about. Because yeah, this is probably the most Zoids I've ever
Yeah.
seen with my eyes. The most I've said the word Zoids.
And I mean, it is a little corny, I guess, the fact that you've got like Zoidians and Zoids and organo, like they play a little heavily on the name Zoid, which is kind of silly, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
But I do think that Zoids was one of those animes that was kind of slept on by most people because it was a mature anime in a very childlike style that it aired on Toonami and all that good stuff.
which
So
again, it just tells me that Western cultures look at things way too siloed. Like if it has these characteristics, it's this.
exactly.
And I do like that getting into like anime and stuff or Japanese culture. I see that things just kind of are more free flow along different genres and all that. So
Agreed. Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, so yeah, and even I'm guilty of it, right? Like, I would even say that as I got older, I never lost my interest in Gundam, but then like I stopped. I didn't I never collected Zoids to begin with. I only ever got the Berserk Fury. So
Ah, okay. Oh,
but
but you're saying like Zoids kind of fell off your radar
yeah,
as you
exactly.
got older, but you're able to kind of look back and appreciate it, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
exactly. Especially I mean, this is like a shot of nostalgia in my veins, honestly.
Oh, that's cool.
Um oh, and Robert is requesting that we show off um the true
And by
antagonist
Robert, you're talking
Zoid.
about our Robert.
Oh yeah.
He's just using Twitch, I guess, instead of YouTube.
Yes,
Ah,
exactly. So
okay,
yeah, I see him in the chat here.
that's
Let me
cool.
see if we can find the Death Soarer here. If not, then we can just search for it. Um, because yes, again, because the Zoids themselves are a living creatures, like the main antagonist of the Zoids
Oh,
universe
dang.
is indeed the Death Soarer, which kind of reminds me of what's that Transformers name? Triptychon.
Oh, yeah. I don't know Transformers too well,
But yeah,
but that seems like what if Darth Vader was a Zoid?
exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
that's cool.
and so it's kind of funny actually. The first time that you see Raven in the Genosaur, everyone mistakes it for the Death Soarer. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Raven's showing up and he's got the Death Soarer," and it's like, no, no, this is way smaller. And
Ah, very cool.
so, but yeah, like I said, that's kind of Zoids in a nutshell, in a poorly encased nutshell.
No,
Um,
I'm definitely gonna be watching it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's worth especially I would say Chaotic Century and its follow-up Guardian Force, which technically all Chaotic Century, but Guardian Force occurs after a time skip. Like
okay.
there's yeah, so there's like a little, which I think more seasons should do that kind of thing. Just
Like time skips
yeah. I
where
I
things
love
are
the idea of a time skip between seasons.
yeah, like Seed seemed to do that, right?
Yeah.
And Destiny was, to us, more enjoyable.
Exactly.
Even, Double O did that.
Yeah, Double
They
O
had
has
the
a time skip.
yeah. That's true. That is a kind of a good mechanism when you're wanting to continue a series instead of just kinda yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
like or a
Gundam did it.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember that old show Reboot had a
Oh,
time
yeah.
skip.
Yeah, that's right. That was a good one too because didn't later, like, he had, like, stubble and an eye patch
Yeah,
or
yeah, I
something like
mean,
that?
there was, like, this whole side story of, like, Bob getting lost in the internet and all this stuff.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Um, that's
Um,
really cool. Um, Now let me ask you real quick though.
shoot.
Do you know of a video game right now that's easily accessible that kind of has the story?
I did not get the title of the video game, but I'll send it to you afterwards because
Okay.
so basically I was looking for this image of the Geno Breaker to use in the thumbnail of the stream, and I found one that was a CG render, and then I was like, wait, why is this so low poly? And I was like, oh, it's because it's from the video game. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go back and look at this. Um,
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna look that up then. You know.
but yeah, like I said, I wanna throw some praise here on the Kotobukiya instruction manuals. And like I said, like Diggs said last week, is, I think that if you're a Gunpla builder, get outside your comfort zone and, um, build something from Kotobukiya, build something from a third party company, because you never know what kind of innovations that they have done that Bandai has not. For instance,
Not
I have a
true.
Kotobukiya Metal Gear Rex that is
Oh,
fantastic hit. Um, Now that said, I'm sure that we could derive a lot of the story that I just kind of roughly skipped over in this long. Now, of course, it's all in Japanese. I'm going to have to translate it, but it does have the entire history of the Geno Breaker and the Zoids sort of mythos here in the instruction manual.
that's
But
actually
one
nice.
of the things that I love about this is that you have these detailed designs and illustrations of the core components.
That's
And
pretty cool.
this is actually a pretty cool touch. And I've noticed Bandai started doing this though, where you've got like each page kind of has these tabs associated with it. So it's like, okay, this page kind of covers the head, it covers the body, talks about the tail design and all that stuff. So that's what we have here. When you get to the instructions, you know, here we can tell this we're building the head, right? So, and
Yes.
what's a kit that I built recently that does that? I think even
The
the
Zeta, yeah.
yeah, the Zeta Verka does that.
There is, yeah, a newer one that did that. I'm not too sure if it was a high grade or a master grade or a Verka, but yeah, there's one recently where I was like, oh wow, this manual is actually pretty decent.
Yeah, right. Now I also broke out the perfect grade RX
Ooh,
70 RX 78 2 manual because I was like, well, the Zoids model kit is probably in between price point of a master grade and a perfect grade. So I was like, well, let's compare, apples to apples. I don't want to unfairly
oh, I see.
denigrate Bandai. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at the perfect grade model kits, you do have like fully rendered CG images of the interior components of the mobile
Pretty
suit,
good.
which is really cool. You
Yeah,
have this little layout of like how the cameras work in the eyes and that rear camera so that you can kind of create that three-dimensional image, how the optical sight system works. So there is, a comparable instruction manual style that Bandai does, but they do reserve it for their more expensive kits.
and I gotta say, I love manuals just because, and you might agree with this. When we grew up, video game manuals were awesome, and then that
Yes,
stopped. Like it stopped at a pivotal time.
it really
Like
did.
when I was used to, oh, I'm going to the bathroom that day. Well, I'm going to grab the video game manual of the latest game I bought, sit on the toilet, and that's how I'm going to read the manual. And then that stopped.
And what video game could really use a manual is GBO2.
Oh,
Like, can
yeah.
you imagine if they actually had, a breakdown of all of the different mechanics that are operating in tandem in that game?
Yeah.
Because the tutorials from GBO2, they will teach you how to move and how to shoot and maybe how to change your weapons. They're not going to teach you what skills are equipped on different
Exactly.
mobile
Like a
suits.
specific skill, how to make use of it. Yeah, that's oh, yeah, actually, I thought you were going to say Double Dragon because what's another weird thing in that game is you use tokens to buy tips, which are really just explaining how to do moves. And it's like, wait a minute. It's like that's
Street
why I
Fighter
say
gave
like
me this for free. I would
yeah,
just hit
yeah,
pause and
that's
like
where I feel that progression system kinda is backwards because, like, you have to unlock the instructions and how to play the game. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, that's hmm,
It is weird,
that
isn't
would
it?
probably fall under another gripe I have with that game,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you know, I think that
that's not the mechanics, that's just, I guess, part of the presentation.
yeah, content, I'm not sure
Yeah.
where that would fall under, but
Oh, the screen got a little blurry.
oh yeah,
Uh,
let me straighten this up here. So, of course, every Zoid has their signature attack right here. So, the charged particle cannon of the Genobreaker.
oh, that's cool.
Now, I don't know because I haven't built it yet, but I remember that on the old Berserk Fury, there were so many integrated parts in the torso and in the tail that when you straightened the tail out like that, it would actually like it was like one solid movement.
Oh, so it's
Like
almost like putting it in place when you would.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
it would it kind of what would you call that? It's like assisted posing, you know? Be,
Yeah,
be,
I know what you're talking about. I feel like there is a word for that.
so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, here we've got more detailed illustrations of the interior components and then explaining what each of them does and why. This is the most fascinating thing is that they explain why some of these things are the way they are.
And which is cool because what we're looking at is not the instructions. This is
Right.
just detailed, but if you were to go to the instructions, those pieces would be there.
Yeah, exactly.
I love
Um,
that.
and
I love
that's
that.
part of why these things are the way they are. So, like for instance, the Genobreaker itself has a charged particle cannon that, you know, it's probably overpowered for the size of the Zoid, but the only way that it's able to fire is when its body is in that erect position, with the tail extended and like it's unable to move when it's in that formation. And so obviously that's a weak point of the Zoid, and it is like a functional part of the kit. Is like the kit cannot like you can't pose the cannon out unless the rest of the Zoid is in its firing position. I guess if that's what you want to call it.
I
So
appreciate that.
so it's one of those things where like you and I talk about a lot. Kind of um the way that we like when you can appreciate something about a model kit or you can appreciate something about a mecha because you have the
Yeah.
model kit and because a lot of these components work the same way in the model kit that they would work
Yeah. It's almost
on
like
the
it's like
actual.
lore.
Yeah,
It's like lore in that kind of model form, where as you're building it, the story is being told.
yeah. So yeah, I think that this is a fantastic instruction manual that you like I said, you really just don't see that kind of level of detail. Now, again, when you look at our Zeta Gundam for Ka here, you have the 3D renderings of illustrations instead of 2D drawings.
Mhm.
But I mean, let's see. Let's compare the years that these came out. So this came out 2023. What year did our repackaged version come out? I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find this in the instructions. Well, I might need to.
Hmm.
The Z34. Yeah, this is not readily available. Oh wait, I think I see a copyright date here. No.
I'm gonna look it up here real quick.
So that's always another thing to consider, right? Is like, you know, when this model came out versus when a newer one came out. I mean, I know that the Zeta Gundam is newer, but it's just a question of by how much.
Yeah, it doesn't even say on Amazon. Let's see. It doesn't say on Big Bad. Hey, I guess since it's saying repackaged version, your thought is maybe it came out and then like a couple years later they repackaged it.
No, I think the repackaged version is actually in reference to the kit itself. Like,
Oh, is that like terminology used
yeah,
for?
I want to say that it
Oh,
is, um,
interesting.
but I can't say for sure because I don't remember anything in the anime of like of the Genobreaker being broken or anything like that or being damaged to the point that it would have to be
Oh,
kind of.
January of this year. So
January of
that's
this
kind
year.
of in line with the Zeta, not too far
Wow.
off.
And there you go. So I mean, came out at similar times. I still think that if I had to choose which instruction manual I go with, I mean, it is cool that the Zeta includes um the interview with
Right.
Hajime Kotoki.
Where
That's
it's more
always
about him than the mobile suit,
right. And added
selfish.
points for translated into English. But
Oh,
again, that's one
yeah.
of those things where I think that Zoids doesn't have a large English speaking fan base.
Yeah.
So, maybe there's
I gotta say it looks cool because I'm looking at since I searched that up. I mean, that is pretty cool. The closest thing to this that I got into was when that first Beast Wars show came out.
yeah.
I remember like I bought the ant. It was like a giant ant and then something else. I just loved how intricate it was and all that. It was an ant and something else. I forget what the other one was, but I thought those were like really cool just because of how detailed they seemed.
Yeah.
Um,
I appreciated the way that like in their transformed mode they resembled the animals that they were
yeah.
attempting to represent. Um Now of course with Zoids I don't recall any that have any kind of like transformations associated with them. But
It's more of just positioning of weaponry and stuff.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Which
It,
is good. I don't hate transformations, but if they're too complicated, like my wound wart video I put out today, I'm just kind of like, "This
exactly.
thing is cool, but it's a pain to transform."
Yeah, if you haven't checked that out, yeah, definitely check out Adam's video on the wound wart. And by the way, there was a few days there that the interview that we did with Dirty Diggler last week was unavailable because YouTube decided to suggest that it was porn or sexual content. It has been reinstated, and it later was then remonetized. So that's
Oh,
always nice.
wow.
So if you haven't checked out that interview, we do talk about building some of these third party kits. And so I'm excited to kind of show you that process. I'll definitely do a shorter video that's like edited talking about, the build process and that sort of stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do customization wise with it. Um, I did hit a bit of a snag on the old, bound doc that I was working on.
Oh, what
And you know what? Maybe I can ask you guys your opinion. We have a couple of minutes before we wrap up this afternoon. Um, so I had an issue where, and you see, I've got my spoons here that I've been testing out different top coats. So the top coat, my favorite top coat, the Krylon matte finish, it seems to leave this kind of gray sheen on all of the black parts of the kit. So, for instance, this is a spoon that is, get a little bit closer here. So this is a spoon that is just raw black paint. And this is what I've been using on the kit. The top coat that I've been using kind of leaves this weird bluish sheen on the black paint, which it looks okay on the spoon, but on the actual model kit parts, it looks almost like there's been like purple overspray on it or something. Um, and maybe it doesn't show up on camera, so maybe I can get away with doing it.
and it could be that thing we talked about before where a lot of times you'll scrutinize because you're, like, looking at it closely and you're like because really that looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I guess this is an angle where you can kind of see how offensive it is, where it's and maybe again it just is something that shows in the light.
Where it's
Um,
almost like the light is being absorbed a little too much or,
yeah.
I guess, reflecting or whatever.
So I was testing out like maybe a semi-gloss black paint, but I gotta say, I'm probably just gonna stick with what I am used to doing, and maybe it just doesn't have to be solid black. Like,
I
here's
mean, I
another
still
part.
think that looks good. Yeah, I don't know. And were you doing airbrush or cans?
I was using rattle cans on this one.
Wow, because that looks really good.
Hey, thank you. Yeah.
It looks pretty
Um.
even and yeah, wow.
So, well, if that's
Well, I got a question. I found this thing, I put it in chat called the Gojulas?
oh yeah, the Gojulus. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, the ogre, and it's like 200 and something dollars, but it's showing a pilot inside. Does that also come with a pilot that you have?
If it does, I have not gotten to that section of the instruction
Okay.
manual yet.
'Cause I didn't yeah, I wasn't expecting that to be a thing, but it's showing this one where there's, like, a little pilot, and that is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's another thing about these kits that they are 1/72nd scale, so they're
Yeah.
actually larger than your average Gunpla because, obviously, if a master grade is 1/100th, then let's see if I
Oh,
can.
yeah, because I'm looking at the Liger Zero, that also has a pilot. It must have a pilot.
Oh yeah, then it's definitely got a pilot.
And, something else too, when I was doing some research, I saw that, like, a ZOIDS game came out in 1986. So was it where it was a toy first, then a game, and then the show was just later?
I guess so. And like I said, owned by Tomi Takara, so it was always
Yeah, 1983, the
yeah.
year I was born. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig back into it. I might actually fire up the old Chaotic Century show if I can find it and kind
Well,
of
Goose just linked us
redigest some of this stuff.
on Discord. So, yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it too, and maybe we can do a little breakdown or something
There we
eventually.
go. I
Yeah.
heard it in the chat earlier. Zoids explained. When are we gonna do that channel?
Hey, that you never know if
Yeah, don't tempt me.
yeah, I
Don't threaten me with a good time.
know.
Um, But yeah, I think that just about wraps it up for today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed my very sloppy crash course into the Zoids universe. And like I said, I just really wanted to express, my gratitude and express to Goose, you know, hey, this hits a major nostalgia vein for me. Um, oh, and totally forgot to announce, speaking of Goose, one of our supporters, um, it is October. It is spooky season, so all of the perks for the supporters of the show have gone out. If you are a tabletop gamer, this month's Patreon reward on the Patreon down in the links below is probably the most. It's the thing that I'm most proud of all time. It is a tabletop game scheduling calendar that allows you to put as many players and dungeon masters into a spreadsheet as you want, and it spits out all of the available times for you guys to play. Very beautiful UI. I'm going to be adding features to it, but it's one of those things where it's like, man, I've poured my heart and soul into this because I think that the big bad evil guy in any Dungeons and Dragons campaign is the ogre of scheduling. So I hope that you guys check that out and enjoy. Yeah, Adam, we got to get you a Zoid. I'm thinking we got to pick you one out and get you a kit because
I'm
then
already
we can
looking
we're gonna
already.
wind them up and have them battle just just
So
like
wait,
when
the
I was a
model
kid.
kits do the winding up and moving as
I
well?
don't think that the new ones do. The old
Oh, okay.
ones did like back in the
Oh,
early
no,
2000s.
that's
So
I'm looking at this Gojula's, and it's only 175 on Amazon, so
yeah, I mean, like I said, they fall right in that range of more than a master grade, less than a perfect grade.
yeah, these are great. Thanks for this episode.
This was a fun one, and I maybe I'll combine this with a GM and have like a GM riding a dinosaur or something like that.
Oh,
Well,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
well, sweet.
Okay.
Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope we have converted Adam to be a
I think
Zoids
so.
fan. And yeah, check out the Gundam Explained show tomorrow,
Oh, yeah.
11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern, and go check out the Wound Ward video if you have not,
Yeah,
because
thank you.
that is a that is a monster of a figure, and I appreciate that. Someone
A
had to
lot
buy
to
it.
it. Yeah,
Someone had to
I
buy
know.
it and call out the fact that it is a pain in the butt to transform,
Yeah.
and you know, I like that you got the option part set too.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it can exist or it cannot exist, and if it exists, at least it's, like, perfect, even if it's difficult.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
but yeah,
very
thank you
cool.
so much, Adam. Hope
Yeah,
you
no
guys have a
problem.
good rest of your day.
Yep, see y'all.